tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Good evening, everyone. Today we are continuing with our lectures on the Patisambhida Magga. Yesterday I couldn't do the class, so I moved the class to today. So far we have studied 7 wisdoms mentioned in the Patisambhida Magga out of the 73 which were possessed by the Buddha. Now today is the time to occasion to discuss about the Bhayatupaṭṭhāne Paññā ādīnave ñāna, which marks a very significant stage in Vipassana meditation, which is called Nibbida, or the dispassion, enchantment of towards the conditioned realities. So this wisdom is threefold based on the stages, how it sees the sankharas, how it contemplates about the sankharas. First stage is called Bhayatupaṭṭhāna ñāna, seeing the conditioned realities as dangerous or as dangers. Then ādīnava ñāna, seeing the disadvantages of the conditioned realities. Then finally becoming dispassion, having dispassion towards the conditioned realities, which is called Nibbida-anupassana. These are the 3 different stages of the same wisdom, and which is a very interesting position or an attainment in the Vipassana path towards the liberation. Then afterwards, after dispassion, what should be developed is the equanimity towards the sankharas, and that is another stage which we'll be discussing next week. Then comes the attainment and the supramundane attainments. So in this lecture, we are going to talk about Bhayatupaṭṭhāne Paññā ādīnave ñāna. Bhayatupaṭṭhāne Paññā ādīnave ñāna. Bhayatupaṭṭhāne Paññā ādīnave ñāna. So as in other wisdoms that we have discussed so far, this also has 2 phrases. Bhayatupaṭṭhāne Paññā, the wisdom in the Bhayatupaṭṭhāna, or wisdom which is the Bhayatupaṭṭhāna. And then ādīnava ñāna, the wisdom in seeing the disadvantages. And when these 2 wisdoms arise, Nibbida naturally follows. Nibbida will follow naturally. Now, what is Bhayatupaṭṭhāne Paññā? Bhayatupaṭṭhāna is upaṭṭhāna. Upaṭṭhāna means manifestation or approaching and standing close to something. Upaṭṭhāna. Sometimes upaṭṭhāna refers to attending or serving someone, supporting someone, especially a sick person or an old person. Some senior monks do have their upaṭṭhayakas, the ones who always attend them and care about them. Now, Bhayatupaṭṭhāna means there can be 2 definitions on how this word is being formed. Technically speaking, Bhayatupaṭṭhāna means the wisdom which sees the conditioned realities as dangers. Now, this wisdom was followed by Bhanga ñāna, Bhanga-anupassana, which we talked last week. Bhanga-anupassana means conditioned realities arise and vanish, and we focus more on the vanishing aspect. And then it sees the vanishing of the reality, of the wisdom which saw the vanishing of the reality. So these are sankhara, conditioned reality. Conditioned reality. And this is the wisdom. I shall use the Pali terms, that would be easier. Sankhara, And this is the wisdom, jnana. Viddha Bhayatupatthana Panya, this is the, sorry, Bhanganupassana. Bhanganupassana. One sees, now the wisdom sees the vanishing of the reality, and then the vanishing of that wisdom is seen by the Bhanganupassana jnana. So when this is repeatedly done, what happens is, he understands, the yogi understands these realities, the conditioned reality and the wisdom, as anicca, dukkha, and anatta. Anicca, dukkha, and anatta. The three characteristics are known. So this wisdom is followed, not followed actually, preceded by another wisdom called 𝐷𝐴𝐵 jnana. With the 𝐷𝐴𝐵 jnana, one sees the rising and falling of the conditioned reality. It also sees how the samsara happens due to conditions. It's a broader wisdom which we shall discuss later. Then this wisdom was followed means actually preceded by sammasana jnana. And also having seen the rising and falling, one needs to contemplate with 𝐷𝐴𝐵 jnana these conditioned realities as anicca, dukkha, and anatta. Then with the sammasana jnana, he just focuses on conditioned realities without seeing the rising and falling, without much emphasizing on rising and falling. He just contemplates these conditioned realities as anicca, dukkha, and anatta. And then this was preceded by the Kankha Paccaya Pariggaha jnana, which sees how conditioned realities are conditioned by other realities, causes of this. So this is the Paccaya Pariggaha. Seeing the conditioned realities. And this was preceded by, this is how it goes, moves, Nama Rupa Paricheda. Nama Rupa Paricheda, which says there is only two different elements, Nama and Rupa. There's nothing other than that. Right? So, in this regard, he understands the non-selfness, Nisatta Nijjiva, non-selfness of the realities. Here he understands the conditionality, which is also a part of the anicca and anatta characteristics. Now in this way, the yogi has seen that nama rupa are conditioned by nama rupa, and first he understands there is no nama and rupa, and those nama rupas are conditioned by certain causes, not created by the god or has not appeared spontaneously. And then he contemplates those nama and rupa as anicca, dukkha, anatta, which is not a compulsory thing, but it's better to do that. And then he sees the nama and rupa as rising and falling, and contemplate them as anicca, dukkha, and anatta. Even at this stage, to make it more clear, non-selfness is a part of anatta, is a one facet of anatta. Conditionality, seeing the conditioned realities as conditioned realities, is a facet of anicca and anatta. Both characteristics are seen to some extent, but not completely. So those characteristics, anicca, dukkha, and anatta, becomes very clear to the mind, and the yogi understands them thoroughly only after seeing the rising and falling. Rising and falling. Just seeing the rising and falling is not enough. One has to understand the three characteristics embedded in these conditioned realities by seeing the rising and falling. And then the mind is more inclined to the vanishing of the realities, and also he sees the nama and rupa vanishing. At the same time, the wisdom which saw these nama and rupa, which understood the passing away of nama and rupa, is also vanishing. So namas arise and namas vanish, rupas vanish, and then the yogi knows the wisdom which understood the vanishing of the nama rupas also vanish. And he sees the anicca, dukkha, anatta characteristics of the realities and the observer as well. ඥාතංච ඥානංච උභෝ විපස්සති. So now when this contemplation is done, he understands nothing in the world, nothing in the entire universe, nothing in the 31 realms of existence. We can find any permanent thing or anything that can be attached to, or that should be grasped as mine, or to something that should be kept as a refuge or something. So there's nothing. If one is born in any of the existence, he is sure to pass away and he is sure to die from there. It can never be a permanent relief. So when seeing the vanishing of all the reality, and also the observer, the mind which saw the vanishing of the reality, he understands there's nothing which is permanent in this world. So then what happens, he starts to see all these conditioned realities, including the observer. So we can put all them into one category and know as nama and rupa. Nama and rupa, since they vanish, they are seen as dangers. This is a characteristic of dukkha lakkana actually. Dukkha, right? Why are they dangerous? Because they vanish. You cannot stop. There's no way to prevent their vanishing. So if one possesses something, it is bound to be separated from that, either by the destruction of that reality or the destruction of your own. Now, then this is the wisdom that all the nama rupas that was seen through the entire process of vipassana, now he's seen them as dangerous. So technically, this is, psychologically speaking, this is a very logical thing which happens to the mind, and it makes sense actually. When someone is seeing that entire universe is composed with nama and rupa, which are not self, and they are conditioned realities, and they do vanish instantly, having arisen, and they are not permanent reality, they don't last forever, and whatever duration they exist, they are bound to vanish, even the generations, lineages. So what happens is, when someone has such contemplation, such thorough contemplation, understanding, obviously he would see the world as dangerous, all the nama, not to something that was to be afraid of. So that is called bhayatupatthana jnana, seeing the world as dangerous, seeing the nama rupas as dangers. Now, when someone keeps on seeing this and investigating the entire world, like all the nama rupas in his contemplation, he sees more and more disadvantages of these nama and rupas. Why? They are constantly vanishing. That is the main reason. And then he starts to see all the disadvantages. Dangerous, as dangers. Then disadvantages. All the disadvantages. So both of them comprise facets of the dukkha lakkana. More emphasis on the dukkha lakkana. So why these are dangerous? Because no one can stop. Because if someone possesses them and get attached to them, he is bound to suffer one day. And why there are all disadvantages? Because one of the main characteristics of these disadvantages, or we can say perils of the conditioned realities, is there is no refuge here. No refuge. There's no refuge. Because now, if there is something that we can rely upon, even the area, even the region is full of disasters, if there is some person or some place at least where we can stay safe, or we can be free from, if we approach there, we will be free from those dangers, we will still try to not to abandon our motherland where we have been living. Because these nama rupas we have been possessing them throughout the entire samsara. This is our we are the host and this is our birthplace. We haven't experienced anything other than these nama and rupa. We are stuck in this sankhara world. There's no experience we have other than these sankharas. Therefore, even panyattis are based on sankhara. So we are stuck in this sankhara world. Therefore, now we are going to abandon this and to get out of these sankharas. So unless we are sure that there's no place or no opportunity for any refuge in the entire universe, we will never, we will not give up this attachment, or we will not try to abandon them and move towards the new destination. So therefore, when seeing the disadvantages, one must see that there is no refuge in these sankharas. There's no refuge and there's no one who can give protection. None of the sankharas can act as the refuge, and there is no remedy or no medicine or no person or no power which can prevent the vanishing of these sankharas. So all these dangers, disadvantages are following. Why are all these sankharas dangerous and also not things that should be possessed, and they are all full of disadvantages and perils? The reason is they vanish instantly after they have arisen. So the nature of anicca is the basis for all these issues. Now the person sees these sankharas, and what happens when he keeps on seeing these dangers, especially that there is no refuge and all the other troubles that one possesses or one encounters, these namarupas arise due to namarupas, what happens is he gets dispassion about the nama and rupa. Gets dispassionate about the nama and rupa. N-R, nama and rupa, become dispassionate. Disenchantment or dispassion arise. This is sort of a feel like it's a wisdom. It's a wisdom. It's something that has to come up. It's not something that we contemplate. We are seeing the disadvantages. We are seeing the dangers. But dispassion is sort of an emotional thing. Don't get it wrong when I say it's emotional. It's something, detachment happens. It's a natural thing which follows when you see the disadvantages and dangers. Imagine you are being attached to a certain person, and when you keep on seeing the bad side of the person, or that the harm that is bringing him to you, naturally the attachment will reduce, and you would finally get detached from that person. It's not love and detachment cannot be brought by force. It happens through a process. And what is the process to get this dispassion? It is seeing the dangers and seeing the disadvantages. In order to have a clear understanding or a grasping or a view or understanding about these disadvantages and dangers, one needs to see the vanishing, not only of the realities, but also of the wisdom which understands this vanishing. And in order to mind to observe the vanishing, first he needs to see that these sankharas rise and vanish. So arising and vanishing has to be seen to know that these sankharas have limited existence. So first Udayabbe Jnana has to be known. So then why do these sankharas arise? Because of the causes. So due to causes, these sankharas arise, and he has to understand the causes as well, because to have clarity about the origin of these sankharas. And one should also know there's only these sankharas, namarupas, and there's no self other than that. So this is the process. So starting from the namarupa paricheda jnana, gradually we improve the wisdom. And we have to hit this place of dispassion, because we are going to get out of this sankhara world, out of namarupas, and to attain the liberation. So for that, there has to be dispassion. So dispassion is one stage in vipassana. This is called balava vipassana, the strong vipassana wisdom. Everything below dispassion is considered as young or weak vipassana. even including the Bhanganupassana. These are the three stages. This is the process where we get the dispassion. So we have to treat all these three. Bhayatupatthana, Adinama, Bhayatupatthana, Adinama, and Nibbida, Jnanas as a one unit. Final outcome is Nibbida. Dispassion has to go. Now, dispassion is the place, it's a very important junction in the path of the Vipassana practice. Because that is the moment now the yogi is really disgusting or being fed up with the Nama Rupas. And now he would delight in the process of getting out of it and also the liberation. And this would be followed by another wisdom which is closer to an emotional state, which is called munchitu kamyata, a desire to get out of sankhara. It's also a wisdom. They are not desires or any chanda or any attachment or any emotion. All of these are wisdoms, but these wisdoms, like these two wisdoms of Nibbida and munchitu kamyata, have some sort of emotional element in it. And that emotional element, now think about it, we cannot forcefully fall in love with someone. It has to happen naturally, especially if it is a romantic love. It has to happen due to many causes. Buddha said that the commentary said that it happens either due to a connection from the past lives or continuous association. But still, it is an outcome of a process, either due to a connection in the past lives or continuous association is obviously due to unwise attention when compared in the when evaluated in the noble in the realm of noble truths, because there's nothing to be attached in this world. But somehow we know that you cannot forcefully love someone, especially you cannot romantically love someone. It has to come. It is something which happens naturally. In the same way, and also detachment happens, is also a process. It may take some time, especially if someone is separated from the other person and spend a lot of time without him and focusing on other stuff, then naturally the detachment or the attachment would reduce over the time. Or sometimes seeing the faults, always observing the bad side of the other person. And also if that person is bringing harm or putting you down or causing the declining of yourself. So then naturally we would start to get detached. So detachment and love happens. They are outcomes of processes. So in the same way, this entire process of vipassana, these are all basic stuff. Sometimes we say the vipassana starts with udayabbe jnana and Bhanganupassana is the pivot, like it's a culmination of vipassana as we discussed last time. Yes, but still these are all preliminary acts compared to the next stages. Why do we do all these vipassana practice? Is to become dispassionate about the sankharas. So detachment has to happen. Now this detachment, dispassion, is the outcome of this entire process. And this detachment is called the strong vipassana wisdom. Compared to that, even the Bhanganupassana, according to Theravada tradition, is considered as a young vipassana wisdom, Taruna vipassana jnana. Now after dispassion, what happens? It would be followed by a desire to get out of sankharas, and then a very thorough, vigorous vipassana practice, because there's nothing to do other than contemplating the three characteristics to get out of the samsara or the sankharas. So then it will be followed by a vigorous practice called patisankhanupassana. Is it the same thing will be done? Contemplating anicca, dukkha and anatta, contemplating the rising and falling, and contemplating the rising anicca, dukkha, because anicca, dukkha, anatta will be evident only when you see the rising and falling, but it's not necessary at the last stages, because rising and falling is prominent. He has already seen it. You don't need to always see the rising and falling and to get the understanding of anicca and dukkha and anatta, you can just keep on contemplating them as anicca, dukkha and anatta, because you have already opened the gate, seeing this bhanga, seeing the vanishing of the realities. Some teachers emphasize that after the bhanganupassana, you have to keep on seeing the rising and falling. It's not necessary actually. What you are supposed to do is to contemplate the realities of anicca, dukkha, anatta, because now you know that because the purpose of seeing the rising and falling is to know that these conditioned realities have a limited existence, and they are existing as different, separate temporal units, that they were not before they are arising, and they will not be before after the vanishing. So seeing the rising and falling is opening the gate to understand the three characteristics. So when you have opened this gate and thoroughly developed the bhanganupassana and also have reached the nibbida level, now what we are supposed to do is to just contemplate the three characteristics of sankharas again and again. But what happens here is, now we'll be talking about this in detail in the next lecture, in next week, because it will be an interesting one, the next stage. Now the dispassion has come. Now this dispassion has to be subdued, because now someone is detached from the sankharas, but there is sort of an emotional element in this wisdom. So that emotional element has to be removed. That dispassion element has to be removed. And one should be very economous about these sankharas. He should not be affected by seeing the perils of these sankharas. Because at this level, when seeing the sankharas as realities that vanish and do not last long, this observation affects him. This is sort of an affection. Affection means it has affected the person. So due to this effect, what happens? The person gets detached from the sankharas. It's a good thing. It is a necessary thing. But still, the perils or the dangers of the sankhara, the disadvantages of the sankharas have done a change in our mind. That is a very necessary part, but that change is too much for a liberation. In order to liberate, the mind has to see the disadvantages and still be economous, or still be very stable, should not be having those emotional aspects in the wisdom. That's very vital. So the next stage would be santittana, nibbida, santittana. Santittana means observing them without falling into any of the extremes. Extremes means not getting dispassion about them or not getting attached to them. So one has to see the realities as they are with a very economous mind. Some teachers say that this nibbida or the dispassion is an outcome of a defilement. What is it? The self-view for the noble beings is the asmimana, the idea of I. The self-idea was dominating here. The reason is, now when the yogi sees all the disadvantages and dangers, the mind naturally, even the yogi being unconscious about it, naturally apply these disadvantages to oneself. Since I am here, so I will be born. If I will be born in any of the worlds, even in the divine realm or even in the Brahma realm, that all the disadvantages befall me. So therefore, the yogi's dispassion is an outcome of the view of self or I. Therefore, in the next stage, following the desire to liberate and also a vigorous meditation practice, which is called Patisankhanupassana, the yogi is supposed to contemplate the non-selfness of the realities in depth, in various ways. We shall talk about them in the next week actually. So when someone contemplates the non-selfness thoroughly, It's not only that characteristic, he has to contemplate all the three characteristics time to time, but with more emphasis on the non-self aspect. Then what happens? The dispassion changes into equanimity, and he's just observing the sankhara. He knows their disadvantage, and he'll never be delighted on them, about them. He'll never wish for those sankharas, but that dispassion element will be gone. And the great desire to attain the liberation would be controlled. Now, because he understands, because there's no eagerness as it happened in the 𝐏𝐚ṭ𝐢𝐬𝐚 level, will happen in the 𝐏𝐿𝐼𝐴 level to get liberty. Because these wisdoms of dispassion and desire to get out of sankhara are backed by the idea of self. Backed by the idea of self. Because it's I who will experience all these disadvantages. It's I who wants to get out of this samsara. That's the normal desire a person who has not done vipassana has in the beginning. When we listen to the Dhamma talks or the teachings given by the Buddha about all the miseries in the samsara, we feel that we have to get out of this samsara as soon as possible. Otherwise, I will be experiencing all this suffering. And even though it's a wholesome mind, even though it's good, it's very important to move towards the renunciation, but still the I factor is haunting. I factor is haunting throughout this process. So the next stage after dispassion is even to get out of that I factor thoroughly and to know it's just sankharas are having all these three characteristics. It's the sankharas which are suffering. There's no person who, even a new birth to happen, even if a new birth takes place, it's not that I will be suffering. It's just sankharas that will be suffering. But then what happens? Technically speaking, one would argue that then he would give up the practice. No, he understands thoroughly. Even if those are sankharas, the kilesas are still prevailing, and all the sankharas possess those natures that the suffering will be felt. And in those lives, those sankharas will be taken as mine. So there is some sort of a default failure or defect in this process of sankharas. So he will never ever let it continue. Because some people ask, if there's no sankhara, if there's no person, then what is the purpose of this liberation? Because even though there's no self, these sankharas act as if they are a self. And the suffering is felt. Wrong decisions are made. And above all, the wrong way would take these sankharas as I and behave like a self. And truly believe in a self, actually. Then, therefore, there is some sort of a inbuilt defect in these sankharas. You cannot just give them up and say, like, okay, let this computer be there. It doesn't matter even it lasts long or not, because it is not a self. It's not similar to such an inanimate thing. These Nama Rupas are quite different. So therefore, in the Sankharupekkha level, it's called Santittana. The equanimity arises, a strong equanimity arises, and he understands that the only sankharas are existing, and he has seen the sankharas true natures, and he is not very much eager in getting out of nibbana, but he will never give up that desire, or desire means the effort to get out of sankhara, and he'll be very equanimous and calm and just keeps on observing the sankharas. There are three characteristics. The next stage is the most powerful vipassana level. And that is the stage which leads to the liberation, which would give the breakthrough. So next week, when we extend this chart, things would be very clear. Now, our attention is dispassion. So at this dispassion, which is a very interesting position point in the vipassana practice, and this dispassion is followed by, dispassion happens in three stages. The first is Bhayatupattane Jnana. So how it is explained? This is the wisdom in the manifestation of 5 factors: Uppada, Pavatta, Nimitta, Ayuhana, and Patisandhi. Uppada is the birth, Pavatta is existence, Nimitta are the conditioned realities, Ayuhana, striving for birth, Chetana, and patisandhi, rebirth, as dangers. He sees them as dangers. It means the entire samsara, all the nama rupas are seen as dangers. And also, this is the wisdom in mentally taking Gahana and approaching those 5 factors as dangerous due to being endowed with oppression. So, simply speaking, all the nama rupa, the entire existence, the whole process of samsara is seen as dangerous. That's the, it manifests to the mind as dangerous and is seen as dangerous. The word Bhaitupattane Panya is formed in the following 2 ways. The object that manifests as a danger is called Bhaitupattana. The object, the nama rupa themselves and the entire samsara manifest to the mind as dangerous, right? Danger. So that object itself is called Bhaitupattana. The wisdom in that object is called Bhaitupattane Panya. That means the wisdom which understands that object, that Bhaitupattana object. In the object means not connected, it's knowing that object. It's upon as an it takes that object as an it takes it as an object. The second explanation is the wisdom that attains the conditioned realities, considering them as danger, is called Bhaitupattana. The wisdom which approaches these objects, all these sankharas, all these existence, and all this as dangerous is also called Bhaitupattana, right? Because it approaches them, stands close to them, and sees them as dangerous. According to this formation, the meaning of the Bhaitupattane Panya must be taken as Bhaitupattanang Panya. Here the Bhaitupattanang is in the neuter gender nominative case. Then we move on to ādīnava-jñāna. So seeing the sankharas as dangerous is Bhaitupattane Panya. Then what happens? ādīnava-jñāna is the wisdom which sees the disadvantages of the conditioned realities. To a yogi who develops the Bhanga-anupassana by seeing the vanishing of conditioned realities, sankharas appear as great dangers. It will naturally appear as great dangers. To the yogi who contemplates as past realities vanished, present conditioned realities vanish, future realities will vanish, right? Past vanished, present vanishes, present vanish, and also future will vanish. The wisdom of Bhaitupattana arises. That's natural. We already discussed about it. When he developed the Bhaitupattana jnana, he started to see no refuge, security, or protection in any of the existence. Because no one can prevent this passing away. No one can prevent this passing away. Right? He does not wish for or grasp any conditioned reality. All the conditioned realities appear to him as full of disadvantages. They manifest to him as full of, and the very pivotal characteristic is there's no refuge. There's no way to stop all these misery. Likewise, when all conditioned realities appear to the yogi as dangers due to the Bhanga-anupassana jnana, so actually, due to Bhanga-anupassana, or when they appear dangers due to Bhanga-anupassana leads to Bhaitupattana, that's what is meant here. He sees the disadvantages which are tasteless and unsatisfying. When seen so, the ādīnava-anupassana jnana arises. Due to Bhanga-anupassana, sankharas appear as dangerous. When he develops this, he sees more and more disadvantages. And especially, there's no refuge in these sankharas. So, now, when the yogi thus sees disadvantages of the conditioned realities, he becomes dispassionate towards them. He becomes dissatisfied with them. He does not delight in them. As a golden swan who is delighted in the root of the 𝐿𝐼𝐴. 𝐿𝐼𝐴 is a sort of a beautiful mountain mentioned in the books. Does not delight in a pit at the entrance of an outcast village, very dirty place. A swan who is living in such a beautiful area would never delight in such a foul place. The yogi, then the yogi does not delight in any of the conditioned realities pertain to any of the realms, because even he is offered the greatest offering or the kingship or whatever. For what? Because it would eventually vanish. I don't want anything that is impermanent and that would eventually get lost. He is delighted in only, he has delight in only 2 things. 3 types of contemplation, because this is the way he sees the truth. He is delighted in the truth, actually, seeing the truth. So that's why seeing the truth is one of the greatest tastes that we have, right? Surpassing any taste, in my opinion. So then only Nibbana observing Nibbana would be something much greater than that. So he is delighted in the three types of contemplations, Anupassana and the Nibbana. Okay, obviously, because Nibbana is the conditioned state, unconditioned state, free from all these perils. Seeing that would be a real delight, obviously. So then the three types of contemplations and Nibbana. So he's only delighted, but he hasn't seen the Nibbana yet because he's a Purvadana yogi. He's contemplating them based on the experience or the knowledge and the practice he had. It's just an inference. But for the yogis who are practicing for higher noble paths, who had already attained Sotapannahood, they can contemplate Nibbana directly. His mind inclines and bends towards the Nibbana. At that time, the Nibbidanupassana wisdom arises. The Nibbidanupassana wisdom arises. So another very important thing. Now see, all this Nibbida, Bhayatupatthana, Adinava, Nibbida, all follow. Why do they appear as dangers? Why do they appear as, why all the disadvantages become eminent, prominent? And why someone is dispassionate towards the Sankara? It's because they vanish. They arise and vanish. So the main problem of all these Sankharas is the impermanence. Anicca. Anicca is the impermanence. So leaving out impermanence, the anicca characteristic, we'll never be able to explain this Dhamma. So this anicca is that much influential and had spread all around the entire doctrine. And it's just a joke if some people try to change this word and call anicca, CCHA, and to define it as something that doesn't exist according to your desire. That's also a characteristic of Sankharas. But the main problem of these conditioned realities is the impermanence. So it's a joke that some people, especially in Sri Lanka, it doesn't happen in other countries because all the ones who have studied the doctrine is very prominent, very eminent, very obvious to know that it's not about anicca, it's just anicca, impermanence. There's no argument among the scholars on this. Some monks who have just tried to interpret the Dhamma as they want based on their desire and what they have understood have tried to distort the Dhamma. It's a real baseless thing that some people have brought, which has no basis at all, because even the entire process of Vipassana in Theravada, in the doctrine, has been explained based on this characteristic of impermanence. So this doctrine is so much logical, and you can see how the Bhayatupatthana, Adinava, and the Nibbida arises based on the observation of the vanishing. So if you are going to remove this impermanence thing, characteristic of impermanence from the doctrine, so the entire process of Vipassana and everything have to be altered. Yes, some people want to say that the entire Tripitaka or the doctrine has been completely distorted throughout the process. Yes, they have appeared 2,500 years and suddenly got the divine wisdom to understand everything. Ironically, the ones who can see how Buddha appeared in such places like Sri Lanka and so forth cannot tell what we ate 5 days ago. Will not be able to tell my great-grandfather's name, but they are capable of seeing 2,500 years back and where the Buddha appeared, and this is the place, so forth. And they are able to see this. And some say that one Thera, not a Thera, actually it's a Samanera, who is able to go into that state and see through his divine eyes, and he's coming into synchrony with the true nature, true past. So these are just jokes. Because if you are able to see 2,500 years back, why can't you just see 1 year back and say, on this exact day, what did I eat? Even he will never be able to recall what he ate even. But he is able to see the Buddha's past lives, where Buddha appeared and so forth. So, and those are the people who are trying to say that it's not it's not anicca, it should be anicca. It has no basis at all. So it's even a waste of time going for an argument and try to prove that, because the entire doctrine of the Buddha is based on this characteristic of impermanence. Impermanence is the real reason why this entire world is full of misery. That's the main reason. It's the king of all the problems. And you can see why the dispassion happens, why the disenchantment happens. Seeing that all the sankharas are temporal. Therefore, so the entire process, and it's very vital that one see the rising and falling and see the vanishing, or even of the observer, the mind, the wisdom which observes. So that will be the gate. And till that, the very most important point is, till the end of the Banga, till achieving the Banga Anupassana, even developing Banga Anupassana is considered a preliminary act in Vipassana. The strong Vipassana arises when we get detached from the Sankhara, seeing their vanishing and seeing all the dangers and disadvantages. And the next stage, which we are going to talk next day, is like you have to balance that emotional aspect of the wisdom and be more economous about what's happening and to accept the reality. And some teachers would say, accept the reality from the beginning. No, we cannot do that actually. We cannot do that because dispassion has to come. Dispassion has to come. So that's the process. Then one can argue if dispassion is due to this influence of the defilements, and would the nibbida jnana would appear to an arahant? No, this is a different case. It's a repetition of what we have done. A sotapanna person repeating his own process, the process he came, can enter into Palasamapati. But if he wants to attain the Sakadagami level, he has to do the Vipassana again from the Udayabhya. He has to start it again as a new process. And he'll be having new experience. New experience means he's touching the areas that he had not touched. He's giving a very thorough investigation into the Nam Rupas. When he's going to attain the Palasamapatti, he's repeating what he had done. So all the wisdoms can appear when he does the repetition. Because even though the defilements are not there, So what happens is, so even when we are reaching the arahanthood and this process, nibbida arises to an anagami person because his asmimana is not removed. So therefore, this is a very complicated and psychologically we should call logical, not provable, a logical process that is taking place in the Vipassana practice. And this is a very nice wisdom. And the final sentence in the handout is that, as stated in the Patisambhida Magga, the three wisdoms of Bhayatupatthana, Jnana, Adinavanupassana Jnana, and Nibbidanupassana Jnana are three stages of the same wisdom. Three stages of the same wisdom. Okay, thank you for listening. I give you the opportunity to ask a few questions, yes, if there are any.
May I ask my question, sir? Well, we learned about Vipassana Jnana mainly by reading what is written by Venerable 𝐷𝐸 𝐴𝐶𝐼 The Mahathero has always referred to either Nava Maha Vidarshana Jnana or 10 wisdom of insight or whatever, the Dasamaha Vipassana Jnana. In that sense, either a collection of 10 or a collection of 9. But in Patisambhida Magga, we don't find that division. So, as an erudite scholar, I would like to know why is that difference, and where would Venerable 𝐷𝐸 Mahathero was able to get that other listing?
Yeah, it's an obvious question that arises when you have studied the Vipassana, as explained by 𝐸 Mahathera. He has based his Vipassana book on Visuddhimagga. And Visuddhimagga is a commentary actually. And when we look into the Patisambhida Magga, as you said, we don't find the list as it is. as it explained in the Visuddhimagga. And I would give a thorough analysis on this after we have reached the final stages of this phase before we conclude in this semester. We have hopefully 3 weeks left, and I think 3 or 4 weeks. I think it's 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks. Yeah. So I'll be taking all these lectures and try to cover the first 14 wisdoms with the first 14 wisdoms. So these 14 wisdoms encompasses the entire process for liberation. So in these 14 wisdoms, as you said, as you correctly said, Namaru Paricheda Jnana is missing. It starts from the Paccaya Pariggaha. And then the Sammasana Jnana is there. 𝐸𝐴 is there in a very short form, like we had to extend. In the Uddesa, the explanation of the Paticammupada, it contains the entire 𝐸𝐴 Jnana. Then the Bhanganupassana comes. And Bhayatupattana, Adinava, and Nibbida are comprised into one wisdom, and it is explained in the Patisambhida Magga itself, not in the commentaries. Patisambhida Magga itself. So there are 3 wisdoms, and they were talked as one. And then Munchitu Kammeta, Patisankanupassana, Sankharupekkha are taken as one unit. And is also mentioned in the Patisambhida Magga itself that this is the same wisdom, and these are only 3 stages. And then we come the Magga Jnana, Gotrabhu Jnana is explained, especially in the Patisambhida Magga, then the Magga Jnana. In between, we have the Anuloma Jnana, where you reach the Gotrabhu, the few stages of reaching the Gotrabhu. So commentators say in the Patisambhida Magga that when Gotrabhu is said after Sankharupekkha, the Anuloma Jnana, the bridge between these two have to be understood, and it also makes sense. Therefore, when we list the 10 Vipassana Jnanas are starting from Sammasana Jnana till Anuloma Jnana. 9 Vipassana Jnanas are excluding the Sammasana, starting from 𝐸𝐴 Jnana till the Anuloma Jnana. This is how the 9 and 10 wisdoms are there. Now we shall look into this. Now we talked about Sammasana Jnana was there. Now we'll think about the 10 wisdoms. Sammasana Jnana we studied, which the Pali was as Atitanagata Paccupannānaṁ Dhammānaṁ Sankipitva Vattahane Panya Sammasane Jnana. We discussed about it, and it's mentioned in the Patisambhida Magga. Then the next wisdom is 𝐸𝐴 Jnana, which has 2 stages, the young and the mild and the strong. Doesn't matter, they are both the same. So it was stated as Paccupannānaṁ Dhammānaṁ Viparināmanupassane Panya 𝐸𝐴 Jnana. Then comes the Bhanganupassana, which we studied last week. Āraṁmanam Patisanka Bhanganupassane Panya Vipassane Jnana. Then comes Bhayatupattana Adinava Nibbida. Bhayatupattane Panya Adinave Jnana. That's how the topic was given. But in the explanation of the Patisambhida Magga itself, it says Adinava Jnana, beg your pardon, Bhayatupattana Jnana, Adinava Jnana, and Nibbida Jnana are the same wisdom. So we have all the 3 wisdoms there. Bhayatupattana, Adinava, Nibbida. Then the next wisdom compasses all 3. Munchitu Kammeta, Patisanka, Santittana Panya, Sankharupekkha Jnana. And this Sankharupekkha Jnana has been explained as 3 wisdoms, 3 stages of wisdom. Munchitu Kammeta Jnana, Patisankanupassana Jnana. Patisanka is Patisankanupassana. Santittana is the Sankharupekkha. Santittana, being economist. So these 3 wisdoms has also been explained as a one wisdom. Then comes Gotrabhu Jnana, Bahidda Bhuttani Vattanu, which is not a Vipassana Jnana because it observes Nibbana. Only part missing is the Anuloma Jnana. Only part missing is the Anuloma Jnana. And also, if we extend the entire process, before Sammasana, we have Paccaya Pariggaha, that's connected to Kankha Vitarani, and we are missing Namaru Paricheda. So, if you take the whole Vipassana process explained by Rerukane Chandavimala Mahatera, based on Visuddhimagga, only 2 bricks are missing, Namaru Paricheda and the Anuloma. Anuloma is the bridge between the Gotrabhu, Magga and the Sankharupekkha. So we have to understand it, because you cannot directly go from Sankharupekkha to Gotrabhu. Or even one can say it was just still the Sankharupekkha. You don't need to term it as Anuloma Jnana, but the tradition terms it as a separate wisdom. A wisdom that you will never turn back. It's surely one is going to attain get the breakthrough. And then, as the basis for the whole Vipassana, Namaru Paricheda had to be mentioned. So the commentators say, when Paccaya Pariggaha is said, or the conditions of the Nama Rupa is being understood, the first one has to understand what is Nama Rupa. Or maybe someone can also do the Paccaya Pariggaha together with the Nama Rupa Paricheda if someone is so wise. So therefore, out of 10 Vipassana Jnanas, only Anuloma is missing. Out of 9 Vipassana Jnanas, Maha Vipassana Jnanas, only Anuloma is missing. To take the entire process starting from Ditti Visuddhi till the attainment of Magga, Ditti Visuddhi is missing, Anuloma Jnana is missing. So that is how we link these two methods, and they are very much compatible with each other.
Thank you very much for that explanation, and would appreciate very much if you just drop a few lines in one of your handouts about this, because it's a useful reference document, I believe. Another thing is, actually, you mentioned about how the word anicca being abused or it being incorrectly interpreted. And the importance of anicca for understanding and realizing the Dhamma. Similarly, I also find that there's another sect who is overemphasizing nothingness or sunyata bhava, and that itself probably may not be as harmful as the misinterpretation of anicca, but I feel that it does some kind of confusion in the minds of the people who want to follow the path. Some comments about it, if not today, even in a later date, I would appreciate very much.
Because the sunyata, as they explained, there's nothing, right? There's nothing here. Yeah. So that is in terms of like differentiating the doctrines. Anicca doctrine is still within the range basis of the Theravadins, because they still believe that there is something existing. They believe that there's something existing. I don't know whether they have that thorough analysis on it, but normally they would say realities are there, Namarupas are there, they still study Abhidhamma, and then they would say it's not the anicca, but it's the anicca that the things do not exist according to your desire and so forth, blah, blah, blah. They speak on this. Then, if someone says nothing exists, they would fall into the doctrine of the Madhyamikas, and that's taking away the person from the entire Theravada doctrine, which is more harmful in my opinion, because then he'll be talking about something completely different, as Nagarjuna used to talk, and some says Nagarjuna was not talking about the entire emptiness. Anyway, there are various interpretations, but some believe, some scholars have even written written commentaries on that, even Sanghabhadra and so forth, and so some believes that it's some. Also, I think he clearly mentioned that there's nothing in this existence. So therefore, if someone is more overemphasizing on sunyata and goes to the extreme that there's nothing exists, no nama rupa or rupa exists, then which is also a very detrimental for the understanding, because then he will be focusing on something else. He'll not be doing the vipassana as we do. So it's also very harmful. And these harmful things do happen, especially in Sri Lanka. It's very rarely happening in Myanmar. I don't know about Thailand actually. In Laos, there are certain sects that are trying to preach the doctrine only based on Tipitaka without emphasizing or without getting any help from the commentaries. And so in every country, there are such issues. But in Sri Lanka, since there is no system or proper standardized education for all the monks as a country, and therefore, standardized education means there is a standardized education, but not in deep Dhamma, analyzed in deep Dhamma. So therefore, these distortions are very common, unfortunately. Yes.
Thank you very much, and much merits to you, sir. Theruvan Saranai.
So I hope you enjoyed the lecture, and next week, hopefully, we'll be doing the next wisdom about Sankharupeka Jnana. And then we move on to Gotrabu, Magga, Phala, and the Paccayakana Jnanas as well. So I wish you all the best, and may all of us gain the utmost liberation by this merit of discussing Dhamma, and also may this merit support for the prolongevity of the Buddha Sasana. Buddha Sasanam Chirang Tittatu, Buddha Sasanam Chirang Tittatu, Buddha Sasanam Chirang Tittatu, Sadhu Sadhu Sadhu.